Tim Wu is a professor of law at Columbia Law School, and Bill George is the former CEO and chairman of Medtronic, as well as a CNBC contributor. Welcome to both of you. Tim, let me start with you. So there are 4 major wireless carriers in the U.S., but as you yourself noted in the New York Times op-ed 6 months ago, only 2 dominant. So is it better to have 4 with 2 strong and 2 kind of barely hanging on, or maybe is it better to have 3 all dominant competing with each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the trouble with this merger is these 2 companies have been proving how effective 4 is. You know, they themselves have been going at it so strongly and have lowered prices so much for people that I think 4 is a lot better than 3 in this case. I'll hear the other side.
They like to point out that they're taking customers from the big ones, not from each other.
That's true, but they also fight with each other. I mean, they're both competing to be the lower end, cheaper prices. You notice that Sprint has gone way down its prices lately, and you know, anytime you have just 3 players, they don't really have the same, I think, pressure on them to try to win the lower-end consumers.
And Bill, your take. I mean, it seems like if the feds don't like AT&T, Time Warner, they should just absolutely hate one like this. But it's unique. The wireless market, it's all national. All these players are competing for almost every customer in the U.S. Is there a way that this works in your mind?
I think there is, John. And with all due respect to my colleague, they're 3 and 4 very weak players here. And I think by coming together, they can get a lot stronger. Sprint brings the U.S. base, T-Mobile, the technology and capabilities of the Germans. And I think by coming together, it's going to give Verizon and AT&T a run for their money. And they need it. Frankly, we need more competition in service, in offerings, in pricing. They've got a virtual duopoly at the top of the market. I'd like to see these companies come together. I hope the antitrust people will approve it. I think never underestimate Massimo Son, the owner of SoftBank and controller of Sprint, and Marcello Clore. They are fantastic, and I think they can team up with T-Mobile and build a really great company here. And I'd love to see a third tough competitor. I don't think either one of them is a full competitor today, and I think it'll change the game in very positive ways. And we need it. We need that competition.
Bill, given the fact that we have, over the past couple of years, heard Masa Son say that he wasn't interested in ceding control of Sprint and of the technologies there, are you surprised to see how this deal is being structured?
Yeah, I am. Honestly, I've met with Massimo. He's an amazing guy, visionary. He's got a $98 billion fund. But on the other hand, Sprint's loaded up with debt, and I think he realized an opportunity to do something different and to make a big step. So I don't think he'll be totally falling into the background. I think he's given up control, which is unusual for him, but I am surprised. But I think it's the right thing to do in this case, and he probably had to do that to get the deal done. It was the only way he's going to get it done. And so kudos to him for making a difference. And if Marcello's right, they're going to add jobs. I'm a little skeptical about that. But if they're really going to add jobs, then all power to them.
Tim?
Yeah, I think the optics are better of T-Mobile buying Sprint. I mean, T-Mobile is this company the Justice Department in some ways created. They blocked a merger, as you may remember, proposed merger between AT&T and T-Mobile, leaving T-Mobile as a viable competitor. So it does look better to keep T-Mobile around. Still, I think, given the success that the Justice Department had blocking 4-3 before, I think it's really an uphill battle for these guys in front of the Justice Department. I mean, I've looked at the numbers, all the models. All the models suggest the rational thing for these companies to do is raise prices once they've got down to 3. And so I think it's going to be very hard for the Justice Department not to block this.
Do you think 5G policy has been well crafted? And if so, when will it be?
No, I mean, but it's not the American style to sort of say, hey, we have this one thing, other than going to the moon. Like, this is the thing we have to have, and we will, like, subsidize it like crazy. That
right, but that's a good analog, because Russia, I mean, Sputnik, this is all sort of rolling into the same story, a bilateral race to some tech achievement that the U.S. argues we're behind on.
Yeah, I mean, I think the U.S. should be cautious about that kind of thing. You know, and then think about the 80s, where Japan was racing to supercomputers, and America went to, like, personal computers, and that turned out to be the right thing. So I'm kind of skeptical of these big national efforts to get one big industrial goal. I think they often, like, oh, we need to, you know, be the biggest steel producer in the world. I mean, that's a very sort of Chinese kind of national planning kind of approach. I don't think it's worked for America in the past.
Bill, what kind of conditions should the feds look at putting on something like this if they do, in fact, allow it?
Well, that's a tough question. I think they have to avoid any monopolistic tendencies. I don't think that's going to be hard to do with the strong duopoly at the top. I don't think they can put conditions on them not raising prices, but I do think they can put conditions on them on their commitment to go forward. And by the way, I think he just made my point. Technology, 5G, this costs a lot of money and you need heavy funding, and I don't think Sprint can stay up with the game. I think they don't have the funds to keep up with AT&T and Verizon as a standalone. So I think this is a must-do deal for survival. I don't see them really being strong if they don't do this. And so I advocate for it that reason.
And Tim, we're talking about this prospective merger. Meantime, it's the day of closing arguments for the Time Warner AT&T prospective merger. How much does the results of that set a precedent for a deal like this to move forward?
I think they don't in a legal sense, because one is a vertical merger, the other is horizontal. But it may make the Justice Department more or less gun-shy. On the other hand, it would be a lot easier to argue believe it or not, to block this deal would be a lot easier for Justice. All it just has to prove is, guess what? The three companies, a lot of incentives to raise prices, not hard, and I think it's a lot easier for Justice to block this deal than AT&T. Maybe they chose the wrong one to go after.
Well, this is a day and time where not everything seems to make sense, so we'll see how it works out. Tim, Bill, thanks so much.
Hey there, thanks for checking out CNBC on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on all of the day's biggest stories. You can also click on any of the videos around me to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.